By 1989, thousands of fans packed into Veterans Stadium's notorious 700 level, where $10 tickets bought chaos, ice and beer missiles, brutal brawls, and a stadium so unpredictable, the city built a real jail inside its concrete shell. This place does not just live up to the name Field of Chaos, it redefines it. It's every flaw baked in from day one. But why did Philadelphia's Dream Stadium become the most feared and infamous arena in sports? The answer lies in decisions made long before the first pitch was ever thrown. In the late 1960s, Philadelphia leaders promised a modern sports palace, a stadium meant to unite the city's fans and end years of complaints about outdated ballparks. The dream began with compromise. The city backed it with a $25 million bond, approved after heated debate and a public vote, and it barely covered the basics. When ground broke in October 1967 on a windswept lot in South Philadelphia, cost-cutting became the guiding principle. The design, known as Octorad, favored concrete and efficiency over comfort or aesthetics. Multi-purpose was the buzzword. One stadium for both baseball and football, with seating that could be reconfigured and a field surface that could handle anything. Beneath the promise of flexibility, shortcuts piled up. The AstroTurf field, touted as a futuristic solution, was little more than a thin green carpet glued to concrete. It saved money on grass and maintenance, but left players vulnerable to burns, bruises, and far worse. The stadium's steep, imposing bowl maximized capacity, but created sightlines so distant that binoculars became a common accessory in the upper decks. Railings, walkways, and emergency exits met only the minimum code requirements of the era, leaving little margin for error if crowds surged or tempers flared. Political wrangling shaped every phase of construction. Delays from labor strikes, weather, and a bribery scandal involving the stadium's first manager pushed costs far beyond the original estimate. By opening day in April 1971, the final bill had ballooned to more than $45 million. The rush to finish left behind unfinished details and a patchwork of quick fixes. City architects and engineers, under pressure to deliver on time and on budget, prioritized speed over long-term durability. Stadium officials boasted about the Vets' capacity, over 62,000 for the baseball and even more for football, but insiders grumbled about crumbling concrete and leaky pipes even in those first years. The Vets' blueprint reflected the city's anxieties of the time, a need to prove Philadelphia could compete with New York and other rivals, but on a shoestring. The result was a fortress of poured concrete, functional but cold, built to last but not to inspire. From the start, the stadium's flaws were locked in by the very choices meant to save it. As the years passed, those early decisions echoed through every incident, every injury, and every headline that made Veterans Stadium infamous. The hazards were not an accident. They were the price of building big, fast, and cheap. High above the field, past the endless ramps and echoing concrete, the 700 level stood alone. Its yellow seats ringed the very top of Veterans Stadium, a world apart from the luxury boxes and family sections below. Tickets for these seats rarely cost more than $10. In the 1980s and early 1990s, a $5 bill could get you through the turnstiles and up to the summit. For many Philadelphians, this was the only affordable way to see their teams in person. The distance from the field was measured not just in vertical feet, but in culture. Up here, binoculars were standard equipment. Concession lines stretched deep, the bathrooms were few, and the only menu was beer, hot dogs, and popcorn. But the real draw was the crowd itself. A living, breathing force that turned every game into a social experiment. The 700 level attracted a loyal following. Blue-collar workers, neighborhood regulars, and die-hard fans who staked out the same seats year after year. They arrived early, sometimes straight from work, and claimed their territory with banners and chants. The rules were unwritten but clear. Loyalty to the home team, suspicion of outsiders, and a willingness to defend your section, sometimes with words, sometimes with fists. Visiting fans who wandered into the wrong row risked more than heckling. Stories of beer showers and flying insults traveled fast, but so did tales of camaraderie and shared hardship. For many, the 700 level was a badge of honor. Game days brought a ritual energy. Tailgating started before sunrise. Flasks and six-packs made the climb up the ramps, tucked into jackets and coolers. Ushers and security kept a wary eye, but the sheer number of fans made real control impossible. Instead, informal leaders kept order, or at least set the tone. Fights broke out, but so did communal chants that could shake the stadium. The section's reputation for rowdiness became legend, reinforced by every news report and every story passed down from father to son. Players noticed. Visiting athletes described the 700 level as a wall of noise and hostility, a place where even the most seasoned pros felt the pressure. During the infamous Bounty Bowl II, in December 1989, as the Eagles faced the Cowboys, fans from the upper reaches pelted the field with snowballs, ice, and anything else within reach. Officials, players, even broadcasters found themselves ducking for cover. The NFL fined the Eagles and demanded answers. But for many in the 700 level, the barrage was not just a protest, it was proof of their power. The city, already struggling to contain the Vets' chaos, faced mounting calls to take action. Inside the yellow seats, a microculture had taken root. Isolated by design, united by circumstance, the 700 level became both a sanctuary and a battleground, a place where the city's passions, frustrations, and sense of identity played out in real time. The pressure for change was building, and soon the authorities would try something never seen before in American sports, justice delivered right inside the stadium walls. Chaos in the stands forced Philadelphia leaders to try something no other city had dared: a courtroom and jail right inside Veterans Stadium. After a notorious Monday night game in November 1997, when police responded to more than 60 fights, Councilman Jim Kenney, Judge Seamus McCaffrey, and Eagles executives met behind closed doors. Their solution was as bold as it was strange. By the next home game, a makeshift courtroom and holding cell, quickly dubbed Eagles Court, were operating beneath the stadium's concrete stands. Fans arrested for fighting, for drunkenness, or for launching bottles from the upper decks were hustled off the concourse and into the custody of stadium police. Within hours, they stood before Judge McCaffrey, a man whose booming voice and military bearing turned each case into a spectacle. The process was fast: summary trials, fines, and ejections, all before the fourth quarter. Most of our defendants had no lawyer. The judge called it instant justice, and the message was clear: cross the line and you would answer for it before the game was even over. City Council minutes and mayoral memos from late 1997 show the urgency behind the move. Stadium violence had become a public embarrassment, and the city's usual legal system could not keep up with the volume or the speed required. Municipal court officials signed off on the plan, and the Philadelphia police coordinated with stadium security to staff the new system. Arrest logs from those first games list dozens of cases, nearly all for minor offenses: disorderly conduct, public drunkenness, and assault. Conviction rates rose, with most fans fined or banned from the stadium on the spot. Judge McCaffrey embraced his role as both enforcer and showman. He gave interviews in his robes, warning that the days of lawless fandom were over. Eagles Court quickly became a national punchline, but for city officials, it was a practical fix, a way to restore order without calling in the National Guard. The experiment lasted only a few games inside the stadium before moving to a nearby police station, but its impact lingered. Veterans Stadium had become the only place in America where you could go from the bleachers to the bench in a single afternoon. Concrete dust, settled on the seats long after opening day, but the stadium itself never settled. By the late 1970s, the first warning signs appeared. A chunk of concrete breaking loose from a support beam, landing with a thud in an empty aisle. Over time, these incidents multiplied. Fans began to swap stories of ceiling fragments dropping near concession lines, and of sudden cracks snaking across the upper decks, maintenance logs from the era note recurring repairs to beams and supports, with patchwork fixes often prioritized over full restoration. The relentless schedule, baseball one night, football the next, put constant strain on every joint and seam. Escalators and plumbing told a similar story beneath the surface. Plumbing failures led to flooded restrooms and standing water in the concourses, sometimes forcing staff to close entire sections mid-game. Escalators meant to move tens of thousands smoothly would grind to a halt without warning, trapping crowds on steep ramps or forcing them to climb endless flights of stairs. The steep rake of the seating, an engineering feat meant to maximize sightlines, became a hazard when combined with slick concrete and minimal railings. The real test came during overnight conversions. A veteran groundskeeper recalling those long shifts described the process as a race against exhaustion. After the final out, crews would descend on the field with forklifts and jackhammers, tearing up the pitcher's mound and rolling out turf panels. Bleachers slid along steel tracks, sometimes sticking or jamming from years of grime. Every conversion left behind new divots and uneven seams. By dawn, the field might look ready, but hidden beneath the artificial grass were bolts, gaps, and patches of hot asphalt hastily poured to stabilize shifting truss-spun dirt. Players stepping onto the surface could feel the difference. One wrong move, and a cleat might catch in a seam or sink into a soft spot. Each conversion added another layer of stress to an already aging structure. Risk was never fully addressed. Inspectors noted the growing list of hazards, but with back-to-back games and a packed event calendar, repairs were always temporary. The stadium's bones creaked under the weight of its own ambition, each crack and malfunction a quiet warning of trouble yet to come. August 13th, 2001. The Eagles and the Ravens suited up for a preseason game at Veterans Stadium, but before the first whistle, trouble was already brewing beneath their feet. Players warming up noticed something was off. The seams in the new next turf were not holding, cleats caught in soft patches, and then, across the third baseline, a split opened, revealing jagged bolts and bare concrete. The surface meant to protect now threatened to injure anyone who stepped on it. Veterans Stadium's grounds crew scrambled to patch the gap, but every fix fell apart. The problem was not just cosmetic. Beneath the thin turf, years of rushed conversions and patchwork repairs had left the field unstable, a patchwork of asphalt, dirt, and crumbling concrete. Players from both teams huddled with coaches and officials. The risk was clear. No one wanted to be the next name on the injury list because of a stadium flaw. After tense discussions, the NFL made the call. The field was unfit for human use. For the first time in league history, a game was canceled moments before kickoff because the field itself was too dangerous to play on. Fans already in their seats watched as players packed up and left. The league's statement echoed through the stadium. Safety had to come first. The cancellation sent shockwaves through Philadelphia. Years of warnings from athletes and union reps had gone unheeded. Now the vets' flaws could not be hidden. The field that once symbolized progress had become a hazard. And for the men who played the game, refusing to take the field was the only way to protect themselves. The stadium's reputation for chaos had finally reached the turf itself. May 16, 1998. Edward Malloy, just 30 years old, lost his balance in the upper deck of Veterans Stadium and fell more than 30 feet. The impact left him fatally injured. Emergency crews reached him quickly, but he was pronounced dead at the hospital within hours. Police reports describe a moment of confusion and panic among the crowd as fans in the lower level realized what had happened above them. And the stadium's steep pitch and low guardrails, measuring just above the city's minimum requirement of 42 inches, had long been a source of quiet concern. Stadium blueprints confirmed the barriers met code, but for years, fans and staff alike had whispered about the risk. The upper decks were notorious for their dizzying height, narrow walkways, and the feeling that a single misstep could have dire consequences. Fatal. Malloy's family, stunned and grieving, spoke rarely to the press. In their few public words, they described a man who loved the Phillies and saw Veterans Stadium as a place of joy, not danger. OSSHA did not investigate, as the incident involved a spectator, not a worker. The city's licenses and inspections department reviewed the site and concluded that the stadium was in compliance with code. Yet the sense of unease lingered. Engineers and safety advocates pointed out that code compliance did not always mean safety, especially in a venue known for rowdy crowds and late-night games. The tragedy forced a reckoning. The stadium's design, legal on paper, had failed to protect one of its own. For many, Malloy's death was no longer just an accident. It was a warning that the risks built into the Vets architecture could carry the highest price. 6 names linger in the shadow of Veterans Stadium: Tug McGraw, Ken Brett, Johnny Oates, John Vukovich, Darren Dalton, and David West. Each man was later diagnosed with glioblastoma, a rare and devastating brain cancer. For their families, the pattern was impossible to ignore. Questions multiplied. Was it the water, the air, the turf itself? In the early 2020s, pieces of the stadium's old AstroTurf, saved by collectors and former staff, were sent to independent laboratories. The results returned a troubling detail. 16 different PFAS compounds were embedded in the fibers. These synthetic substances are known to persist in the environment and have been linked to certain cancers in some studies, though they are rarely linked specifically to brain tumors. Toxicologists and epidemiologists examined the findings. Dr. Veena Singla, a toxicology expert, called the presence of PFAS concerning but cautioned that the evidence could not prove a direct link. The chemicals are found in many places and their ability to reach the brain in dangerous amounts remains uncertain. Chain of custody documents from the turf samples confirmed their authenticity, and the lab reports left no doubt about the PFAS content. Yet officials with the Pennsylvania Department of Health noted that clusters of rare cancers can occur by chance, especially in small populations like professional athletes who share many risk factors. There is no comparable spike among Eagles players who played on the same surface for decades. For the families, the science offers few answers. The stadium is gone, the turf scattered, but the question remains unresolved. Evidence points in many directions, but no single cause can be named. The story ends not with certainty, but with a lingering sense of unease, a reminder that some dangers are invisible and some mysteries refuse to be solved. Today, stadiums promise comfort and safety, but the lessons of Veterans Stadium linger. As teams break ground on billion-dollar arenas, questions about fan behavior, player welfare, and hidden risks remain urgent. The scars left by concrete, chemicals, and chaos remind us that spectacle and safety are never guaranteed. Every new field inherits the weight of what came before, and every city decides what it is truly willing to risk for the game.